We all know each other, so I'm going to dispense with any introductions. You know, a small, happy little family. You know, I heard someone, kind of talk about the small crowd speaking to the converted. But I honestly, I think it's important that we speak to the converted. That we need to kind of be able to constantly kind of encourage one another and build each other's spirit. Because I think that we have a number of challenges ahead. And I think that as I look out to the future, I would suspect that we will see people becoming more alarmed and wanting to have more of a say in the whole issue of peace building and nuclear disarmament. I'm lucky to be on a board with Greg Presley, our board chair, that cares really deeply about peace. What you might not know is I think I can say we're the only local board in all of Auckland that has a peace portfolio. And I really consider it a privilege to be the portfolio holder for the Peace Initiative. And we as a local board are continuing to try to look for opportunities of promoting peace, whether it be issues around domestic violence, right through to peace and reconciliation in our community, and also the wider nation and the world. Look, I also want to be kind of offy and encourage Auckland libraries and Glen Eden Library especially. T.S. Eliot said this, said the very existence of libraries should give us hope for humankind. You know? And I want to just acknowledge what I think is quite a courageous thing for this library to be doing. I mean, here we have the history of the peace movement in this country in their windows. And within the walls of this library, there are books and articles that can tell us and that hold the archives of this history. And it's libraries that show us and give us the opportunity of futures and ideas that we previously might not have thought possible. So a big ups to our local Glen Eden Library. If I could just say a couple of points too, because I believe that when we forget our memory, when we forget our history, when we don't know it well enough, we find ourselves in danger of losing our passion and actually losing our freedom and losing our inspiration. So just a couple of things that just to remind ourselves what kind of brought us to this far. I arrived in New Zealand in 1975, just after Norman Kirk had sent frigates to Mururoa to protest French testing. In those days, were you there? Were you on one of the boats?
Oh, I was not a boat, but I was there.
Yeah. you know, what a wonderful example to the rest of the watching world. New Zealand is always boxed above its weight, not simply in things like dairy and rugby, where it's really bounced above its rate, is in the area of peace and nuclear disarmament. We really led the way and led the world at that time. It was also, the peace activists that got out in kayaks and motorboats and sailboats in 1976 when the Long Beach, and what was the Thruxton, came into the harbor, and the citizen armada said enough is enough. We're not going to have this come to our shores. And that protest continued right through until the Lange government came into place. Sometimes we find it hard to find things to say about Richard Prubbel, but Richard Prubbel, I'd like us to remember, was the MP who brought a no nukes policy to the floor of Parliament. And with only one vote majority, Muldoon thought he could swing it. And it was Marilyn Waring who stepped up and said, I'm going to cross the floor on this. And the vote went to the abolishment of nuclear ship visits, and it cost Muldoon the election, and the Labour government came in. That's something that we should remember and celebrate. Also in 1982, forgot to mention this, Laurie Ross, and the part that you were playing in coordinating our West Auckland Peace Group that moved to see our Waitakere Council become a peace city and a peace borough. I mean, again, thank you for your work, Laurie. Laurie's always been a stalwart. She continues to push. She struggles for the peace initiative and for a nuclear-free New Zealand on every occasion. And so we owe you lots, Lori. So again, thank you for that. And then what we are celebrating today is the 1987 passing of the Nuclear Free Zone Act. And if I can just read the preamble to that, to establish in New Zealand a nuclear-free zone to promote and encourage an active and effective contribution by New Zealand to the essential process of disarmament and international arms control. That was New Zealand stepping up, saying, this is just not a local issue we're speaking to here. We are going to stand on the stage of global justice. And for me, that is something that has made me extraordinarily proud to now be a New Zealander and to be living in this country. I think that our nuclear policy has been perhaps our greatest export. This year, as Laurie said, is also significant as the United Nations is negotiating the nuclear weapons ban treaty. But if I could, so that's important, and I think Laurie's addressed that. But if I'm really honest with you, somewhere in the 1990s, I kind of took a breather. I've always worked in peace, but I thought, I get the feeling that everything is settling down. We see it, the nukes being dismantled. We see some kind of coexistence going on with the Soviet Union. China seems to be behaving. I mean, everything seemed to be going kind of in the right direction. But to be honest, I think that I'm kind of wanting to keep my powder, so to speak, dry at this point, because there's a great myth in humanity that says that progress is linear, that evolution is linear, that we are always moving from better to good to better. But history doesn't work like that. We can, in fact, go backwards. And I'm very alarmed by what's taking place now. Japan is remilitarizing. We have the squabble going on back and forth between a very insecure leader in the United States and a very insecure leader in North Korea. And I think that while nuclear war may be morally repugnant, it is certainly not politically impossible. And I'll say that again, it is not politically impossible. I came across, this group Captain Mandrake in Dr. Strangelove said this: we don't want to start a nuclear war unless we really have to. And that's the problem. And that's the problem we face, the kind of political thinking in some of these countries. So today, while we celebrate the achievement of 30 years since the passing of the Free Zone Treaty, this occasion, this display reminds us to be vigilant, to be persistent in our resistance, and prepared again to be solid activists for peace. The present situation demands this of us at this time. So thanks, Laurie. We're a small crowd, but we are committed, and we will, again.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's, again, as you've just said, it only takes a few of us to actually form a minimum critical mass and then to like a homeopathic dose for the whole of society. But I do believe we will get bigger numbers out to the domain. And
if you'd had Bono here,
what's that?
If you'd had Bono here, it might have happened.
Yeah. But now it's my pleasure to introduce Lisa Eyre, who is another icon